Hi, I'm Kit. I teach philosophy at Azim Premji University.
Hi, Kit. I'm Titiksha, and I'm a second year BA Humanities student at Azim Premji University.
You're saying it like we've never met. That's awesome.
So, Kit, why did you come to APU?
Why did I come to APU? The problem with that question is that the answer is so kind of sickeningly nice to APU that I don't. It sounds terrible. APU is an incredible place, right? Wonderful people committed to teaching. You get this nice close mentorship relationship with students, which I really like the way they teach. It's rigorous. It wouldn't work anywhere else. It's an exciting place to be.
And
Yeah.
what about the philosophy section of it?
Yeah. It's been a privilege to start it up, be part of the group who are starting up, designing it, and we're doing something pretty new, especially for India, right? So the idea is that we can move away from history of philosophy of who's, so-and-so said this, and then so-and-so responded that, which is a history mostly of dead white men, and moving into understanding the world, right? Questions like, am I the same person as went to sleep in my bed last night? Or it's pretty obvious that pressing the switch causes the light to come on, but what really is causation? No one's ever seen it, right? You see the switch pressing, you see the light come on, but you don't see the glue between them, the causation. So what is this thing that we all just assume is there, but none of us have seen? Causation. Trying to address these sorts of questions, which are the sort of things that occur to a lot of people, and we try and answer them rather than just listing what dead white men thought about it, or just saying, "Ooh, that's mysterious," and sitting there kind of content with the mystery and not seriously seeking an answer. I don't know if that's very new to APU philosophy, but we're leaning slightly more heavily in that direction, and we're also leaning quite heavily in this starting in 2021. We're leaning heavily in the direction of preparing people for public service, right? Even more than we've done in previous years. So we designed the curriculum we had a bunch of interviews with people from all walks of public service, like government officials. We had people running NGOs. We had journalists. We spoke to a lot of them. I think there's about 25 of them. We had these long, in-depth discussions of what would they like people to be trained in. And a lot of them didn't know really what philosophy was, because who does? But very often they came around to saying, we'd really like people to come out of university with the ability to think rigorously and creatively, with the ability to work with people from different backgrounds, and nevertheless work towards a common thing, even though you radically disagree with one another, right? The ability, a little bit of maths, right? So all the things which philosophy gives you. So it was really lovely designing the curriculum with them. That's been a privilege, and excited to see how it's going to go.
What do you research at APU or in your academic?
I think about how scientists think, and recently I've been starting to think about how judges think. That's basically it. They seem to make these amazing inferences. They look at some evidence and they work out on the basis of that really quite slender evidence sometimes which of these theories about the whole universe is right, or which of these theories about whether this person's guilty or not are right. How do they do that? What do they think? So thinking, you might think it's really easy. Just go and ask a scientist, or go and ask a judge. But thinking turns out to be one of those things a bit like riding a bike. It's something you can do really well, perhaps, but you don't know how you do it, right? So when maybe you can ride a bike very well, right? You know exactly how far to lean in as you're going around the corner. But how do you do it? You probably don't know, right? You're just good at it. It turns out that scientific reasoning is much like that. You go and talk to scientists about how they reason. You talk to 5 scientists, they'll give you 6 different answers. And none of them will be plausible, right? It's certainly true that I still go and talk to scientists and listen to them a lot and take their views seriously, but also I look at their behavior and I try to understand how they're reasoning based on that. We build mathematical models of their reasoning. We look at the history of science a lot. That's it. So it seems like a question which should be easy to answer, but it turns out that so far, human beings as a species, we've not got very far towards answering it yet, I think. But I don't know, I've got another few years in me.
Okay, now this might sound a bit rude, but like, what's the point of asking these questions about how judges think or how scientists think, as long as we get the results of what they think?
Yeah. So, I mean, it might be, and occasionally is the case, that philosophers of science have got something to say to scientists that's helpful. Deep down, though, I think it's more than that. It's not all that many generations ago that philosophy and science were the same thing. If you asked Isaac Newton what he would have said he was a natural philosopher. In fact, the word scientist only gets invented by a philosopher, William Whewell, right, in, I think it's 1864 or something around there. So it's really quite recent. And the split between philosophy and science is even more recent than that, really. And it's been a split that's been worse for both philosophers and scientists. Worse for philosophers because a lot of philosophy for quite a long time went on without a real understanding of our latest theories about the world. And it was just ignorant of the facts. And maybe worse for science too. So science has sometimes gone on without stopping to think about how their reasoning's working or what the implications of their broader outlook are. I mean, even then, it's not that scientists lack a philosophy. Everyone has a philosophy. You can't escape it. They have assumptions they make. It's just that they're no longer so critical and thoughtful about it. So you go back to the early days of quantum mechanics, and you have people like Mach, who's very conscious of his assumptions about science. He's an anti-realist. You go and you think about people like Bohr, who was influenced by Kierkegaard and takes up, and also probably by the positivists, right? Or Einstein, who's on the other side of the debate. And what they're debating in things like the EPR paper, they're debating about quantum mechanics, and Bohr is basically, I mean, very, very coarsely, Bohr is saying, look, quantum mechanics is all there is. It's a complete theory. And Einstein's saying, no, it's got to be more to the story than this, because quantum mechanics is indeterministic. It leaves things to a roll of a dice. There are certain properties which, unless you're looking, that just don't exist. They're neither there nor not there. There's got to be more to the story, says Einstein. And fundamentally, that's a philosophical disagreement. And back then, they were actually pretty well philosophically educated. But since then, we've kind of come apart too far. And that's worse for both the people who've gone on the philosophy side and the people who've gone on the science side. And it's just, we're better philosophers, better scientists, we're better at understanding the world when we're together. So there's that straightforward fact. If I'm really honest, the reason I got into philosophy of science is because I had a really good teacher for philosophy of science. Peter Lipton was wonderful, and a bunch of other really good teachers. James, lady, my supervisor, and Alexander Burswood, loads of wonderful people, and it's just been thrilling to work with them. Right? We were talking about earlier about philosophy being a people thing. If I'm really honest, deep down, I mean, I do think philosophy science is important for the reasons I said. But the reason it gives me thrills is partly because of that, but it's also largely because you get to work with people, you get to trade ideas. There's nothing quite as thrilling as you're both sitting there, or like two or three of you are sitting there looking at a whiteboard, and you've got this idea, and you're going to, oh, but what about this problem? And oh, what about that problem? And no one cares whose ideas is whose. You're just getting to the truth together, right? That sort of interaction with people is just a joy. I can't remember what the question was.
It's okay. This conversation is way better than that.
All right, cool.
Can I ask you something?
Go ahead.
What if you weren't doing philosophy? What would you be doing then?
Having less fun? I think it depends what you mean. So if by philosophy you mean that careful thinking through answers to the fundamental questions, that's, I think, a thing which I would be doing no matter what. I can't imagine a version of me which doesn't do that. A lot of us are just like that. We just think through this stuff. If that's philosophy, then I couldn't not be doing philosophy. If you mean academic philosophy, the study of those sorts of questions and the answers to them in university, if I wasn't doing this, I don't know. I think I would probably be I mean, I hope I'd be doing something equally worthwhile, like working in NGO sector or giving voice to the voiceless or something like that. Philosophy is pretty closely allied to that sort of thing anyway. When I was a kid, I used to think that you should be a doctor because at least you'd save lives then. And I would have made a terrible doctor. I've got a very poor short-term memory, so you have to remember all the bones and all the muscles, and oh gosh, I couldn't do it. But I think I used to be very cynical about philosophy actually helping people. But as I've spoken to more people and I've seen my students go out and help people and seen them come back and say what they learned in philosophy really helped me, it's helping me now serve people. I've come to think that philosophy doesn't save lives in the direct way that medicine does, but it does serve people in a very effective way. So maybe I'd be doing the similar sort of thought and maybe similar sort of work just outside academia. That's a real cop-out, isn't it? I'd be doing basically the same thing. I just wouldn't be getting paid. Oh gosh. I mean, I really love history as well. And I love economics, and I'm really into archaeology. So if I stayed as an academic, I guess I'd do one of those. I really love ancient Indian history. That would be killer to do that.